Здравствуйте. Welcome to our Friday meet. Namaskar. Today we'll be focusing on the stalwart of Russian literature and world literature, Leo Tolstoy, and his contact with India. Tolstoy's advent to India in the second half of the 19th century coincided with the national movement of India for freedom and independence. Then it was an upsurge at that time, and Tolstoy became our great support, source of strength. Tolstoy, as a humanist and a supporter of the toiling masses anywhere in the world, wherever they were prosecuted, tortured, or oppressed, particularly of the colonial countries like India. His pen never became silent against the tyranny of the rulers, may it be in his own country or maybe in England. He never spared the kings or queens of Germany, the president of United States, or the Mikado of the Japan. Never took any chance from his pen to hide themselves from their real character. Tolstoy exposed them as he exposed the tyranny in his own country from all aspects. And that gave inspiration to the freedom-loving people of India who were eagerly fighting against the colonial rulers. And thus, when he himself wrote the article that I cannot keep silent or I cannot remain silent against the autocracy of his country, the Indian intellectuals and freedom-loving people, particularly the freedom fighters, they found in him a great humanist and a supporter for their cause. Letters from different areas of India started reaching him since 1901. By 1901, Rabindranath Tagore already studied Tolstoy's famous book, What is Art? He appreciated, and at the same time, a letter from Madras by A. Ramaseshan, who was editor of the journal Aryan, reached to Tolstoy, requesting his opinion about the colonial situation in India to mention. It was followed by many different journalists from different places of our country, maybe not only from our country but also from abroad, like Premchand Bharati, who was in United States. He wrote letters to him by 1905. Then D. Gopala Chetty or Professor Ramdev of the New Reformer Journal. Professor Ramdev was the editor. And also persons like Mufti Muhammad Sadiq, who was from Lahore. He was the editor of Lahore Journal and Review. That was United India at that time. Then there were persons like famous philosopher and scholar like Esar Chittal and R.S. Sharma. They wrote to him, and all of them wrote to him requesting his opinion to pen down and to stand by India. Also, there was another person whose name should be mentioned here. He was no one else but Upendra Kumar Dotto. He was the nephew of the great historian novelist Ramesh Chandra Dotto and Ramesh Chandra Majumdar and Ramesh Chandra Dotto, and also the father Upendranath Dotto. Upendra Kumar Dotto was father of Rajinipam Dotto, the famous revolutionary and freedom fighter of India who lived in England afterwards also. even after the independence of India, and who gave a big support. But when this Tolstoy's article, I Cannot Keep Silent, reached India and abroad, there was another one more person who was also eager to request Tolstoy, focusing on the living standard of the Indian people, how hungry people are dying in millions because of the colonial oppression. There was a letter from Seattle of the United States where this gentleman founded a newspaper called Free Hindustan. He was also a great initiator of the Gaddar movement in United States itself and also for the liberation of India, where the people from North India and particularly from Punjab, they played a significant role in forming the foundation of the Gaddar Party, and also for the independence of India. This Gaddar Party played a great role. This was Taraknath Das. His journal Free Hindustan reached Tolstoy, and then he requested also Tolstoy to write down some of his own understanding about the people of India, about the plight for the liberation of the Indian people. Tolstoy was by that time preparing an article on India because he was being requested by several Indian representatives from India and abroad to focus his view on the Indian situation. Tolstoy, after 3 days of receiving the letter of Taraknath Das, was thinking to give a reply, but then he understood, or then he thought that it will be a formal reply or acknowledgement of the letter. Then he worked on it, seriously collecting materials from different sources. By this time, two another copies of Free Hindustan reached him through another gentleman whose name was Surendranath Mukherjee, who was also United States, and he sent him this journal. And Taraknath Das's request, Tolstoy took very seriously. He penned down the reply, and the reply became a very famous reply, and it contained not 1 or 2 pages or 3 or 4 pages, but the reply of this letter from Taraknath Das was of 413 pages. And this was very famous and became known to the world, as Tolstoy mentioned it, as a letter to a Hindu. Gandhiji was influenced also by this letter. He later on published earlier Tolstoy's writings like I Cannot Keep Silent or I Cannot Remain Silent was also published in different languages in India, despite the British colonial rulers' attempt to stop these articles, because to them Tolstoy was a dangerous person because he criticized their colonial rule in India and somewhere else also. So that's why they wanted to tarnish, they wanted to malign the image of Leo Tolstoy. But Leo Tolstoy, who was never a Count Tolstoy to us, of course there were some books and write-ups mentioned as Count Tolstoy and his view on India or something like that. Some other articles were also there mentioning, but mainly Tolstoy was considered as a great man, as a great humanist, and that's why he was called as Rishi Tolstoy or Saint Tolstoy. And that was the beginning, that was the image Tolstoy created in the minds of the millions of Indians, particularly to the intellectuals of Indians or to the revolutionaries and freedom fighters of India. Despite different shades of these revolutionary freedom fighters of India who fought back the British colonial rule and who continued their struggle, but Tolstoy remained always their flag. Maybe it's for the non-cooperation movement or some other type of movement, but Tolstoy inspired all sections of the Indian freedom fighters. That we should never forget. And on occasion of his 192nd birth anniversary, we shall say that despite British and other colonial approach and attempt to close Tolstoy from the people of India, not to allow Tolstoy's article to come to India, those articles, his books reached and even are very popular after the 73 years of India's independence. And it is not only popular in India, it is popular still every corner of the world. Hundreds of dramas, plays were staged in different parts of the world, and many films were made based on his writings. So Tolstoy is and was and will always be a respected and highly gracious people to the Indians forever. Thank you. We shall meet again. Das Vedanya. See you again on next Friday. Thank you.